So welcome to this webinar on the top performer. Now I'll give you a little bit of information about me. I know a few of you know me quite well, some of you not so much. Now I am Josh Dykes. I work as a coach. On the picture you can see on your screen there, I'm on the good looking one on the right hand side, and I work with John Canary. Now I work as a coach. I work in business and sales, and that is because the Top Performer program, which John has created and taught for up to the last 20 years, has been something that he's been instilling into me as my mentor. He's been teaching me these techniques that he's learned throughout his life and really given me a lot of value in that. And that's what I do when I coach people and do these webinars as well. I do sales organised webinars and information, so I know how much it can help people, especially on this call as well. If you're a network marketer, if you're in business, or if you can just really get some value potentially from this. Now, John, a little bit of background on John Canary. He is the master of sales, and I really mean that when I say that. He's a Canadian man, and he actually became a top performer before he realised that he was going to be a coach. He was the #1 selling life insurance agent in North America in a field of 16,000 life insurance salesmen. He was #1, and he went on to start his own company with that. John also started an office and stationery company, which sold obviously products, which became within 3 years the #1 selling office and stationery company in the world. Just let that sink in for a second, because the world's a pretty big place. John met Bob Proctor, and they worked together for 35 years as coaches, sharing this message from the Top Performer and some of Bob's products, which will be You Were Born Rich, to some of the biggest companies all over the world, companies like Prudential, banks like the Bank of Hong Kong, Singapore Airlines, and like national hockey leagues. So we're talking big names, and John's obviously helping me develop myself as a coach, and I'm just sending the message to you guys as well. Now, the Top Performer, I listen to this every day. This is a program that helps me, yes, with sales, helps me to develop my communication skills, but it's also a personal development program. And I think a lot of programs which I've listened to, because I love personal development, but a lot of the things give you motivation, makes you feel good, allows you to ask questions. But as far as taking it and using it in the real world, a lot of the stuff doesn't really help us become and make more money and become more successful as a result. A lot of the time it's just tips and techniques of how to get better. Now, the Top Performer does focus on sales, as I said, and it's really taking me to the next level. Bob Proctor is a part of the Top Performer. It's an audio program. You can also have it as a video program, and it just breaks down all the scenarios of sales and communication with people. Now, you can sell yourself, you can sell an idea, a product, a service, even a conversation with somebody can turn into a sales presentation, because you're selling yourself. And if a person buys into you and asks you what you do and how can they become a part of it, that in itself is a sales presentation. Now, we go also into objection handling and, like I said, really practical stuff. But I don't want to go on too much about that, because you came here for the webinar, and I'm going to show you 10 steps, which is part of the program of being a top performer. Now, I've had plenty of experiences, because I think a lot of salespeople, especially, if you get a good product that makes a lot of sense to you, I'm a buyer for sure. I buy things. If I'm being sold properly, if it makes a lot of sense, I will buy. Sometimes I regret it, sometimes not. I work a lot on instinct, and if it feels right, then I will go ahead. But I've had plenty of experiences when I've bought things that I don't really need, or I probably couldn't really have afforded it, and I might not have even needed the product at the time. And this is because the person I was speaking to was a top performer in sales. He spoke to me in a way that I understood and I could relate to easy. He spoke to me and sold me a product without me even realising. He had specific skills and ways of speaking to somebody and portraying his own way. So I understood his world, and he allowed him into my world as well. But these are the steps here. I'm going to go into a bit more detail as we move through the webinar. First one here, asking questions and listening intently. Second one is increase the prospect's self-esteem. Call them by name often. Fourth one's expecting the results that you want. It's one of the bigger ones and one of my favourite ones, and we'll spend a little bit of time on that. Harnessing your criticism. Projecting an atmosphere of confidence. Being very direct. Being sincere. To be friendly. I know some of these are very obvious, but it's some of the things also people that they don't actually use a lot of the time. And to be a good finder. And we'll go into more detail of all of them as we move through the presentation. Now, the first one, asking questions and listening intently. Now what I'm going to do is go into the sales process. What used to happen in companies who sold products, sold services, maybe even sold themselves, places like the banks, places that sold insurance, millions and millions and billions of pounds was put into developing a technique where you could have a product and get it sold to a person, and by being sold, that's a close. You close a deal. Now what used to happen is people used to come in and they'd be speaking to an agent, a person who was selling them a product, and eventually they'd need to sell the benefits and to close the deal, to get the actual money, because you haven't made a sale until you've finished and closed the sale. You know, you literally haven't done anything until you've closed the sale, let's be honest, because they could just go away and then you'd never see them again if you want to spend, you know, the classic one is I want to spend more time thinking about it, isn't it? And then you never seem to hear from them ever again. So what used to happen is you used to get to a stage where you were telling them the benefits, and they'd bring in people called closers, people that could sell the product and close the deal, take the money off the prospect and the client, and physically close and seal the deal. And what actually happened is the amount of money that was spent on these 2 points of the benefits and closing was 80%. Because at the time, that's what you needed to get. You could get to a certain point, but you felt stuck at closing the deal. And it makes a lot of sense. And when I first heard this, I was like, well, I can understand that. And I'm sure you all can as well. That you need to close the deal. And you can understand why people would be brought in specifically to finish it. However, what they tended to realise was you need to actually understand what the prospect needed. Instead of throwing a lot of benefits and throwing a lot of good language at people, you know, sales language, you need to find out what the person wanted. Because once you understand what the person wants, you can sell them what they need. And especially if you work in, say for example, network marketing is an example. If you're in there's a lot of different opportunities for different types of people. You know, some people want to go in it to make a lot of money. Some people want to go into it to make a lot of friends and network with a lot of people and build a business. Some people just want to talk to people, and some people want to have a product that can really help a lot of people, like a health product, and they want to sell that. If you speak to a person and say, well, what do you feel can, you know, you can benefit from network marketing from our company? Instead of offering all the benefits, if you ask that question, they can give you the answer of, well, I really want just to make a lot of money. And then boom, you can start working on that point, because that's something you can offer. That's something the company can offer. If they say, oh, well, I want to just, you know, have my own business where I'm spending a lot of time working from home. I don't have to go to a job. I don't have to work 9 to 5. Boom, you can sell them that aspect of the company. Because if you're selling benefits to somebody, if somebody just wants to work from home, and you're selling the benefits of all the other aspects of the company, they might not be interested in that. So you got to really think about the questions, and also as well, building trust and a relationship with somebody, genuinely asking them questions about what they need, builds a relationship with somebody. And that's essentially what we need. I'm sure you'll all agree, because if you're building trust with somebody, you respect them, you want to listen to what they're saying. So bear with me 1 second. And once you understand what they're saying, and this relationship really is starting to develop, then the logical conclusion to the sales process is to close. And it's not like a big sales close. It makes a lot of sense. So you've built the relationship, you found out what the person needs, you've offered them the benefits that they require, and then you've closed. So now these days, 80% of the money is spent on that area, building relationships and finding out what people need. Now the second point of asking questions and listening intently is, how are you speaking to people? Because there are 3 types of people. There are visual people, there are feeling people, and there are auditory people. Now we do think in pictures, but we also feel emotionally, and we also like to hear the sound of something. If something sounds good, we can be attracted towards it. Now certain types of people, usually they'll blend into 2 categories, but one will be a lot stronger. And if you can speak to them in their own language, then they'll get it a lot easier. And I'll break this down a little bit because it might sound a little bit confusing. But for example, I'm a very visual person, so I like to see things. I've got a lot of posters on my wall, motivational stuff. I like to write things down so I can see it. I like to look good. I like to know what I can have things in front of me so I can physically see them. Now some people just like to get a good feeling about somebody. Somebody, you know, once you can pick up your intuition. One of your higher faculties is your intuition, and you can pick up the mood of the room. You really just want, when you finish work, you want to just go home and feel at home. And the third one is an auditory person, you know, somebody who likes the sound of a deal. They generally talk in a specific way where they really understand how they're saying things, and they pick up how the other person is saying things as well. And if someone sounds like they're not necessarily giving the right message across to them, the words could be perfect, but the way they're saying a certain thing might just not click with them. So you got to understand, and when you're speaking to somebody, listen for the words they're using. And if they're using words like, yeah, I feel brilliant about this deal, it's a really good one, you know, I feel like it could really help us grow. Now that's a kinesthetic person, a feeling person, and you can speak to them by saying, you know, well, how do you feel about this? As a visual person, you know, saying, well, I just want to see, you know, what I'm really working with here. I want to make sure that I've got all the facts lined up. Now that's a visual person like myself, and you can say to them, well, how does that look to you? How do you see this working out for yourself? And then the auditory people, you know, how does that sound? Picking up for how they're speaking and also the words they're using, like that resonates really well with me. Sounds like a good idea. That rings a bell. It's very auditory, and this is quite very technical, but it really does work, and it's almost like sometimes you're speaking a different language. I mean, I've had plenty of experiences speaking to people where you just don't connect. I don't know why, but that's probably a big reason is because you're speaking a different language. We're all speaking English, but we can speak different languages. Now, as well as asking questions, because this is a big one, number one is a very big point of the asking questions. And people do fall into the pitfall of, you know, not speaking the right language, selling the benefits too much about the product without first asking certain questions. Now, you can also set questions up. They'll get the answers that you want. Now, you could say something, for example, like, if I'm being a coach, for example, what benefits do you think you could get from being coached? Now, they're thinking of answers of how they can help being coached, and then you can speak to them on that. You know, what about coaching really attracts you towards doing it? What do you think you could gain from this? What do you think could really, what things are you struggling with at the minute, and how do you think coaching could help you past that? So set yourself questions up. Write down 5 phrases, 5 questions that really grab people's attention. And I'm not going to give you all the questions because they need to be tailored to obviously your own business and yourself. But really listening to people, and the listening part is one of the biggest things, because asking questions, a lot of the time we can ask a question and start talking afterwards without really listening to what the person is saying, especially if it's a question like that we almost know the answer to. The question where we're leading into our own business, like, how do you feel so far about this communication? And they'll say good, and you can say, oh, fantastic, and you can carry on your presentation. But you need to really listen to them, and I'm sure you'll all understand that you've had somebody in your life that's really listened to what you're saying, and you can really appreciate that they are really listening to your answers, and they pick up on what you're saying and how you're saying it. You can say, oh yeah, sounds like a really good idea. You could pick up and think, well, that didn't really sound as interested as I thought they would be. Now, are you sure that sounds like a good idea? What maybe would you feel would make it a better idea? Then you're really listening to how they're saying things, not just the words they're using. There's a famous phrase that, what you are speaks so loud that I can't hear what you're saying. And this goes a lot into the conscious and subconscious mind. If you genuinely ask a question and want to hear the answer, a person will pick that up. They might not even realise what they're doing, but they'll know you're trying to sell them something. But if you ask them a question and listen, on some level, they'll actually think, oh, this person's interested in me and what I'm going to say. So speaking in the right language, asking questions genuinely as well, and really preparing questions and phrases that'll capture the attention of people is a really big one in the first step of being a top performer. Now the second one here, increasing the prospect's self-esteem. Now it makes a hell of a lot of sense. But a lot of the time, especially in my experience with people that work in sales, they go straight into the sales program. They're very confident. They know what they're selling, and they're trying to, battle through your objections and get you to the place where you need to be. And you feel almost too sold. They're only after one thing, and that's your money. And you can pick that up because that's what they're feeling. But if you feel good about somebody and they make you feel good, then you'll relate your product to feeling good because that's a part of you. And if you feel good around, I'm sure if your friends and the people that you like make you feel good. So it wouldn't make it a hell of a lot of sense to really, and that ties into the questions we're asking. Not just about the business, but how are you feeling today, or what's going on with you, what sort of products have you worked with in the past, how have they worked out for you, how did that make you feel? Genuinely asking a lot of questions, because when the prospect or client is talking the most and you're listening, that's exactly where you want to be, because they're literally giving you all the information you need to complete the sale. If you're increasing the prospect's self-esteem, got a few points here. You need to make them feel good about themselves so that they relate to good feelings to you and your product, which will definitely happen. And to have the communication with others, you must have their attention. Now this goes into another part of the Top Performer program, but to have the attention of somebody is so key. You need to break that preoccupation barrier. I could be looking at you, nodding, but having no interest in what you're saying at all. You need to break it down and start understanding them on their level, which ties into the questions. We also need to use these phrases that really, snap somebody out of their own world and bring them into yours. And once they're in yours and they feel good, it's a lot easier to have a sales presentation. And it almost doesn't sound like a sales presentation. It just sounds like a good idea they want to be a part of. Now the third one, call them by their name often. Now I used to be terrible at remembering people's names, and I'm sure some of you might feel the same. We meet a lot of people, especially when we're talking to other people and connecting with other people to try and share our products, share our businesses, and just to meet new people. it's tough to catch everyone's name and remember it. But when somebody calls your name, you know, hey Adrian, how are you doing today? Yeah, I'm fantastic. And they keep on using the name. You want to try and use the name at least 3 times. That works twofold, so you remember it more. And they realise and they respect that you're actually taking interest in them. They're not just another client. You're like, oh, hey Daniel, how's it going? And I'm really pleased that we're moving forward. You know, Daniel, I'm really pleased at how far this, you know, it makes a lot of sense when you're answering the name. And every time you hear the word Daniel, it's an alarm bell because they can drift off. I drift off a million times. Being visual, you know, I've got a lot of things going on in my mind. And I get distracted quite easily. I'm like a crow, you know, I get anything shiny, I draw my attention towards it. I generally do 2 or 3 things at once. But once you call somebody's name, it brings their attention back to the words you're using. So if you're saying, you know, a punchline they need to hear, you should say the name before it. You know, so Alex, what do you feel like you can benefit from the program? What benefits do you think will really help you the most? Brings them in and brings them into your world in the same point. But a quick way to remember somebody's name is association. Now, our memory is one of our higher faculties, and it is something we can train. The brain is like a muscle. The memory is a muscle that we can train to be good at. But a lot of us convince ourselves and say the words that I've got a terrible memory, I can't remember people's names. Our memories, especially our subconscious, is the most powerful, more powerful than any computer in the world. There's a space where we can literally remember every experience we've had in our lives, and we can bring it back. But it's a choice to decide that you're good memory. There are books out there that can make you into a person that's got an excellent memory. But word association, for example, Alex, I'll just pick you because I know your surname. You know, if I see you and I walk up to you and say, oh, hey Alex, how are you doing? I'll imagine on your forehead it stamps the word Alex and Luton. So I could imagine, I know the place Luton, so I'll imagine, you know, Luton Football Club. I'll imagine you in the middle and a football team just behind you. You know, Luton Football Club. Or you can break it down a little bit more, like Jim White. You know, I could imagine the word Jim stamped on your forehead. Or I could even, if you want to break it down even further, I can imagine on your chest you got a t-shirt, a white t-shirt on, because that's your surname, so it'll be a white t-shirt with a picture of a gym, like a workout, you know, place where you go and work out. And if I visualise that, because we do think in pictures, and if you consciously make the effort to remember, you know, that one point when you say it, and you repeat the person's name once they've said it so you remember, I'll see a white t-shirt with a gym on it. Your name's Jim White, and I'll never forget that. If it's a longer name, you can break it down into 3 or 4 parts, but the effort of breaking it down in your own head will make you remember for a lot longer. And the person, you know, it's nice to be called your own name when somebody's talking. It feels like they know you. So that's one point, because we do think in pictures. And we also must create a picture in the prospect's mind of our product, of our service, of us, and put them into the picture. Because we could be painting a picture that's fantastic. Imagine all the potential gains you can get out of having this product. Imagine how much more effective your business could be and how much your work life could be with this product in your life. And we're painting this picture of, you know, this fantastic thing, and they've got a visualization of it. But by saying their name, you put them into the picture in their own mind. And they imagine themselves with all these great things. And then once it's in their own head, it almost becomes their own idea, because you can't give somebody an idea until they figure it out for themselves. I worked that out from coaching. You have to lead somebody into an idea and let them figure it out for themselves, otherwise they'll never want to do it. You cannot tell a person who doesn't want to go on a diet to go on a diet. No matter how hard you try, they've got to figure it out for themselves by catching themselves in a mirror or watching something, or, you know, then they'll decide, oh, I need to go on a diet, and they'll figure it out and they'll do it themselves. But no matter how much you tell them, and they might say, yeah, I'll go on a diet, they'll never stick to it because it's not their own idea. We don't like having ideas forced upon us or given to us as much. We prefer to figure it out for ourselves. And if they've got an idea of themselves in a picture, of an amazing picture of being able to work from home, spend more time with the family, imagine how much that'd strengthen your relationships at home and your family life and your friends, what you'd be able to do and be able to work on and put them in it. It's a lot more powerful than just saying a product and just giving them all the benefits. Now this is a big one, and John Canary and Bob Proctor work a lot with the mind. And by that I mean they work a lot with the subconscious and the conscious mind. And we have a concept that was devised by Dr. Thurman Fleet called the concept theory with a stick person. I haven't got an image here, but I want you to picture two circles, one on top of the other, like a stick person. Now the top one is a lot larger than the bottom one. The top one's a head and the bottom one is a body. Now with the top one, which will be the head or the mind, as we prefer, split into two sections, put a line through the middle from left to right. Now the top half is your conscious mind, the bottom half is your subconscious. And this is where things really happen. The subconscious is a feeling mind. It's a mind where our habits are all stored in our paradigms for what we do and who we are. And once something's in your subconscious mind, and your subconscious mind can't accept or reject anything what it's given, which is why affirmations work so well, because you repeat something over and over and over again, and you eventually believe it because your conscious mind has forced it into your subconscious. And once it's there, you believe it. Muhammad Ali is the greatest, and he said that affirmation, I'm the greatest, before he ever was. But he made that such an integral part of his being that he became that. So your subconscious mind is very powerful. Our conscious mind has got sensory factors, our sight, what we're hearing, what we feel by our touch, what we smell, and our taste as well. And all these faculties go into our conscious mind, and that's how we see our world. Because we all see different worlds. If I can look at a lamppost, it never looks the same to me as it does to you. You see it in a different light from your experiences of life. We can all watch a movie and see a completely different movie and take a lot of different elements from it by the people that we are and our own perceptions. For example, if I'm walking with my girlfriend down a street and an old Mustang pulls up, a 69 Mustang, I'll think, geez, that's a beautiful machine. Even if it's beaten up and rusted, I'll appreciate how amazing that machine is and what it can do. My girlfriend will look at it like it's a hunk of metal that's making a lot of noise. A bigger American showing off machine that she's not interested in at all. And we'll both go away having completely different feelings from the same experience. And our conscious mind has the ability to accept or reject anything we choose. But once we accept an idea and repeat it, we put it into our subconscious, and then once we get an emotional attachment to that idea, we can really move it into action and create some results that we want. And this is really effective in the terms of sales and in terms of personal growth, because it just defines that we can get our own results by simply thinking about them, feeling them, acting upon them, and then it makes a lot of sense that we'll get the results by our actions. Whereas a lot of people worry about other results that they're currently having and what they don't want, and they're so focused on what they don't want, that's what they're thinking, that's what they're feeling, and they act upon those feelings and get the same results year in, year out. They can never change, even if they believe they want to, because they're always focused on what they're actually getting and not what they want to get. So, bringing it back around to expecting the results that you want. If you have an image of your mind that you really want to make the sale, if you want to help this person get the product and get the benefits from the sale, that'll resonate with their subconscious and conscious mind, because we all pick up feelings from somebody else. And if you walk into a sales presentation expecting to sell a product because you know it works, 100% fact, that message will get resonated all the way through everyone that you speak to. They'll understand, because every being, every cell in your being is projecting that image to everybody else. And because you expect it, you sell it so much easier, and you're very confident, you're very quick in what you're saying because you expect to get the results. But like people that go on diets again, a lot of them don't expect to continue. It's a diet for 2 weeks or 3 weeks or 4 weeks, but it should be a lifestyle. It should be a change, a healthier change to the lifestyle that's making them a better person, not just a diet. Because the first 3 letters of diet aren't very good and doesn't portray a very good image, and it's a very negative word that people don't associate good feelings towards. But by simply expecting the results that we get has such a powerful effect on everybody else. And that's why we work a lot in goals as well, expecting to get the goals. Because if we expect it and we're selling your products, we figure out our goal along the way. We know we're going to get it. You visualize the sale and what's going to happen when you do sell the product to the person. You see a smile on the product, the client's, the prospect's face. You see you shaking their hand, helping them get where they need to be. Then when you walk up to the prospect in real life, you've already made the sale in your head. So it's just a formality to speak to them to help them get to where they need to be. And it's also a double binding message. Now, if I'm walking to you and I'm trying to sell you a product I'm not really sure you want, people can pick up on that in a second, especially in a sales environment where they're getting nervous because they might feel they have to part with some of their money, or you're trying to make them part with some of their money. If you haven't built the trust, if you haven't asked what their needs are, and you're just going into your benefits, you're talking about how good your product is, but you feel that this person is not going to buy from you, and I'm sure that you've had this experience a million times, they pick up on it in a second. Even if it's going out to meet people, if you feel nervous around them, you pick it up. You know the nervous guy in the room is. They might be trying to put on a good front, but everyone knows that it's really a front and that they're really a shy person. But if you walk in, and trick yourself, pretend, acting as if, act as if you're going to be the person that you want to be. And eventually, as we've mentioned through the conscious and subconscious mind, you'll become that person. Those thoughts and feelings will turn into actions to get the results that you want. So tell the person the message that you believe with your whole being. You know they're going to get your product, and you'll get such powerful results. Even if you don't make the sale, they'll understand, and they'll probably tell other people about your products because it might just not be for them. They might just not be ready at the minute to get it, but they'll tell other people about it, and they'll resonate you with a good product and a good salesperson. Because what I'm expecting, I'm thinking, and what I'm thinking, I'm sharing and communicating with a prospect. And everybody else. We've all seen the awkward guy in the club or the bar that's talking to a girl who knows he hasn't got a shot. And everybody else knows it as well. Then we've also seen the person who can walk into any place and talk a girl into the bedroom, literally, or vice versa. Because they've got such confidence in themselves and they expect that they're going to do that. And that expectation gets the results. Because they believe themselves to be that person. It's a very powerful state to be in. Now the fifth one, which does lead back to the fourth point we've just made, harnessing your criticism. Now it is a big one for me. I did used to worry about what people thought of me a lot. And I like to think that people think of me in a good light, but I'm not in control of what people think of me. And at the end of the day, people will talk about you no matter what you do. But if you're so self-absorbed and you think that your neighbours will think what you're going to do and your friends will think, to be honest, they might talk about you, but probably what you're doing and who you are isn't on the top of their list. They're probably thinking about themselves and what other people think of them, ironically. But by worrying a lot about what your faults are, what people will be criticising you on, are going to resonate through, and it comes back to expecting the results. If you think, oh, I'm nervous, I hope this person doesn't realise I'm nervous, I messed up with my sales speech then, I said the wrong message, you're doubting yourself before you even giving yourself a chance. You know, I've worked in sales before on, you know, pretty hard cold calling, and I've talked to people and they've said, you know, you've gone past the objections, you've pushed them through, they're definitely not interested, but I was quite hard selling, you know, life insurance. So we kept going and going until they literally, you know, told us they definitely didn't want this product and to leave them alone, pretty much. And that's just the environment I was in, unfortunately. But there were some people that I'd be talking to and talking to and talking to, and eventually, after like 3 or 4 no's, they'd burst out laughing, and they'd say to me, right, Josh, stop what you're saying. I'm not interested in life insurance, but you're a bloody good salesperson, and you should continue doing that because you're very confident and good at what you do. So that might not be, you know, a product for them, but that message told me, bloody hell, that was quite good. And I've also had people tell me no 1,000 times, and it just takes that one thing that just really clicks, and then they figure out, and then it's a sale, and you get through and through, and they almost feel mystified at the end of it, and they're like, here's my details. And we weren't doing anything bad, we were helping them get life insurance, one of the most important things I feel, you know, helping support their families for the future and protecting their assets. But harnessing that criticism within is very powerful because I always had the impression of making that sale. But also ties back to number one of asking the questions. When I was in sales, I used to ask them about them. We had a sales sheet we worked off and a script that we worked off. But then they'd say, you know, oh yeah, have you got any children? And they'd say, yes, I've got 2 children. Now, I was already past a lot of the points then of objections. I was into the whole process. But then I'd ask them, you know, how old are the kids? Oh, 5 and 10. Oh, brilliant. You know, I bet they're a bit of a handful at the minute 'cause it's school holidays or looking forward to Christmas. Have you got anything planned? Have you got just asking them about them. Because we all like to be asked about us. And it's nice, you know, it's nice when someone asks about you. But when this criticism comes in, you're worrying about what they're going to say. It comes across on a subconscious level. And we worry too much ourselves. We can worry ourselves into a right state. But the only thing we can get over criticism with is by action. And by simply acting and taking control and telling yourself, I am good enough. I'm good enough and this product is going to work for them. And just selling it and worrying about it afterwards. You know, there's something what John told me a while ago about fear. We can all come across fear every day. Even something like this webinar. You know, I've done a lot of these webinars and I believe that this message is really good. It's lots of value and you guys can really get a lot out of it. But 10 minutes before, the nerves kick in. I'm worrying that no one's going to turn up or if I'm going to mess up on my slides or if something's going to go wrong. But what you're going to say to yourself is, right, fear, I know you're here right now and you're trying to get in my way, but I haven't got time for you right now, fear. You might want to write this down as well. It's quite a good way of controlling your mind. Because that voice in our head that's criticising us is really us. Say, fear, I haven't got time for you right now. I'm very busy at what I've got to do. I've got to do a few things and make a few of these calls. But once I've made the calls and you're still here, then I'll deal with you. But I'm almost certain that you're not going to be here because I'll be more confident. And I won't even need you in my life by then because I'll have done what I needed to do. And the second thing as well, I'll spend a little bit of time on this. It's a really good point. And, you know, it's not necessarily we're putting ourselves down in such a negative way, but we can worry a little bit about, you know, what people think about us. But criticism of ourselves, we should turn ourselves, our inner critic, into our inner coach. Because this message is all basically love to ourselves, to try and avoid, you know, avoid rejection, avoid the failure. And we're protecting ourselves by this criticism to push it and keep us away from that potential failure. But for example, think back when you were, you know, a child and you were, well, for example, for me, I used to play out on the street quite a lot. We'd have a lot of fun with the neighbours. We used to always be outside, not like nowadays with computers. I'm not old, but we used to play out with the kids in the neighbourhood. You know, basketball, hide and seek, and Kirby, or a few other games we'd had, like even badminton on the street. We enjoyed being outside. But some of the time it'd be late at night, and we'd be finishing up. I'd run across the road, and a car would come around the corner because we lived just near the corner. I'd have been fine. One of my parents would come out and say, "What are you doing? What are you doing crossing the road like that? You're going to get killed. Get upstairs and get to your room." Or a similar experience to yourself. And take yourself back to that moment. You run upstairs, you're angry, you were just crossing the road, you were fine, you knew you'd be safe. The car was coming, why am I in my room? I'm so annoyed and frustrated. But what that message your parent was saying has got 4 parts to it. Now, first is the anger. And that's what we can tell ourselves, and that's basically the criticism that we get on ourselves. You're not good enough. You're not effective enough. What you're doing is wrong. It's not right. The second step is, the fear that we've got in ourselves of what could happen. I'm scared that you might have really, made you might have got killed at that point, and this is what your parents thinking. They'll come up to your room and they'll say to you, "Right, Josh, I'm sorry for shouting, but I was really worried, and it scares me that you've done that this time, and you might not be safe on the road, because if you got knocked down, that'd be a terrible thing, and we'd all, it's very possible as well, because drivers on here are crazy, and I was scared." That's the fear. The same with your criticism. This is what you should be saying to yourself after the anger comes. Say to yourself, "I'm just scared that I'm going to get rejected, or, have that failure, the fear of failure. I don't want to get rejected." Now the third step is a request. Now your parent will say, "Now please promise me that you won't cross the road again like that. You'll be very aware. You go to the corner and make sure you can see down both sides of the road before you cross next time." Hope you're all following me. And the second one with yourself in the same scenario would be, right, I'm going to let you, I really want you to go up there and speak to one person. And if you speak to one person and then it goes terribly wrong, then you can go to the bar and have a drink. But you're first going to speak to that one person, because it's going to really help you get where you need to be with your business, with yourself, and it'll probably get you confident as well. And the fourth step, is the love, because they're doing it because they love you. So, Josh, I love you, honestly. I'd hate for anything to happen, because I'm really in love with you, and you're my son, and we'd never want anything bad to happen to you. And that's the fourth step you should say to yourself. Now, it might sound a bit corny, telling yourself that you love yourself, but at the end of the day, we need to hear it probably more often for ourselves, to get a good image of ourselves. Josh, I love you. What I'd say to yourself, I love me for what I'm doing. I'm doing it to protect myself. I don't want to have that fear, but I know that it's the right thing to do. And this is why I had that criticism. If you go through those 4 steps, instead of going away feeling bitter, resentful, you're getting these bad images in your head of how bad you are, you talk yourself through. You turn this inner critic into your inner coach. Because we all tell ourselves, because of the love eventually, we're trying to protect ourselves. So talk yourself through the process and out of the fear and into the light. So I hope this is all resonating with you guys. Give me a yes in the chat box if you're hearing the message. Thank you, Adrian. Appreciate that. Cheers, Sandra. It makes me a bit, it does get to me that point, because I think I used to be quite a big advocate of that point. It did really affect me on a bit of a level, trying to sell to people without believing in myself. I think that belief's a really powerful thing, which leads me perfectly to this: projecting an atmosphere of confidence. And it's very similar to one of the earlier points, of making a person feel good. If you walk in there with an air of confidence, you make them feel good. Now, in ourselves, we have a thing called mirror neurons. Now, when I see somebody yawning, I yawn because there's something inside of me that's got a mirror in front of me almost, and I see that person yawning, and my brain thinks I'm yawning. That's the whole mystery of the yawn. And when you see someone else yawn, it triggers a response in yourself to make you yawn. And the same way where you look at someone and they're crying, you feel sad. Nothing's happened to you, but you, by seeing them, brings on emotions of sadness through these mirror neurons. When somebody's happy and someone smiles, it's contagious, someone smiles at you, you smile back. Because of these mirror neurons, and having an air of confidence with somebody, walking up to somebody, shaking their hand, which is something we'll go into in a second, because that's a really good point as well. Shaking the hand with a lot of confidence and a smile on your face and saying, how are you doing today? It's been a really long time. I'm glad to see you. What have you been up to? Like, oh, I feel great, thanks. Whatever the feeling, will almost get taken away. You get brought into your world of your confidence. And a person cannot sell anything, especially in my experience, without being confident. Or they won't make a sale that'll last. If they make the sale, they'll probably get a refund because the person will think, oh, why did I buy that? I didn't even need it. And I've had that a lot of the times in my sales experience with some of the guys in the room that were very lack of confidence. And some people might call it arrogance, but confidence is strength with style. You know you're good, you know you're good, and you know why you're good. Now I'll go into the point of the handshake. Now, this is a very practical point, but it's something I picked up a while ago and it has worked a lot. Now, this goes back into speaking the same language as people. Now, obviously, I'm sure you've all heard of the thing that the words, when we're communicating with somebody, our words are like 7% of the communication that we speak. The rest of it's non-verbal. It's how we say things, and our body language is something like 55% of it. So when you walk up to somebody and shake their hand, how are you shaking their hand? Do you have a set... This is a weird question to ask, but how are you shaking somebody's hand? Do you have a set way you always shake somebody's hand? You always shake it hard, you always shake it soft, you always shake it your own way. Because that's almost communicating. If you're shaking someone's hand and they've got a really soft handshake, and you go in and you give them the old squeeze to show that you're a confident, strong person, or that you're a good business person, that you've got a lot of power, and you give them the old business handshake, they might think, God, that's a bit rude. They can be very in touch with their feelings and think that was a bit intense, and be instantly on the back foot. Now, this may seem a small thing, but it's a very powerful thing. And a lot of leaders, I've watched a few videos about this sort of thing, a lot of leaders have like this training. Now, when we are communicating with somebody, you should be responding to them in kind. How they speak to you, you should speak to them. If they've got a very fast way of talking and they speak with a lot of air and a lot of dynamic words and are really out there and in your face, you should relate to them in the same way. Now, if I'm speaking to a client, you're very adaptable to a situation. If I speak to a client who's very auditory, now auditory people are like, rock stars. When you hear, I know they're on a lot of drugs at the time, but they talk, oh, hey, man, yeah, we did a really good gig. It was, we really stole the show and it was fantastic. And it goes, they elongate the words, and for me, that kills me. Because visual people talk fast, you think fast, we think in pictures, and a picture says a million words. So we tend to talk quite fast to get the message out there. If I'm speaking like I am now to an auditory person who's very slow, because they've always got music going on in their head, they've always got a rhythm, everything flows in sort of a song. When they speak, it's like the vibratory rate of their words is just resonating deeply with them. And they enjoy the sound of people talking. You got to speak to them in their way. And you got to shake the hand in the way they shake your hand. Be responsive to how they shake. If they squeeze your hand, you can squeeze their hand and they'll probably feel a bit of respect. They've got a soft handshake, give them a soft handshake. Be reactive to the person and adapt to them as a person and go into their world with your body language as well. And that's when you'll start syncing up with somebody. I'm sure I've had experience, I've had plenty of them in the past, where you walk up to somebody and you meet them, you never met them before in your life, but you just seem to connect. And you talk the same speed, you're going at the same points, you're laughing at the same things, and you just really feel like this guy is a cool guy or girl. I get them. Because you're in the same vibratory rate. You're speaking the same frequency, the same speed, the same style. You probably like similar things, and boom, you in and you like that person and they like you. As a salesperson, you need to have an air of this. You need to understand the sort of people you're dealing with and speak to them in their world, in their language, and resonate with them. But if you're confident in a person and you're a happy person, you can almost bring a person who's negative out of that negativity, because they'll want to react with you with their mirror neurons, which we spoke about earlier on. They'll react how you're reacting. They'll feel confident and good about themselves. And that'll give them a good self-esteem. That'll make them feel good about themselves when they're with you. And they'll relate your products and services to feeling good. So that's a big point. I could go on about each of these points all day. And with the top performer program, there is a lot more depth in this, but I am flying through them a little bit quick. Now this one, which is a bit of a, I was interested to hear this. Being very direct. Now a lot of people in my experience think that being direct will scare prospects and clients away. But people appreciate you communicating what you mean, not just taking them for a walk when you're talking to them, saying, sometimes, yes, it's tough to sell a business or sell a certain product straight away, and that's not what I mean. But being direct at who you are, what you do for yourself, and how effectively that has worked for yourself and the people you work with, and the results, and they'll start asking you, and you'll get questions, and you'll lead into that. But being direct, you really get your point across, and the person understands. Especially if you're talking to a business person or a person that speaks to a lot of network marketers, salespeople, or phone calls, they understand they're being sold to. Now, if you spend 10 minutes talking about a product or service and getting around to the point before even mentioning what it is, they know they're being sold to already. They might even be interested in the product at first, but by the time they get round to it, they're lost interest. It's almost like a disrespect thing because they're not interested anymore, because you just walked them around in this huge circle. And they've just really thought, oh, I'm not interested, I'm bored of this now. I know where you're going, but if it's this much of an effort to get to your point, it's got to be a bit of a scam. But by being direct and saying who you are, what you do, why you're doing it, how it helps, asking them questions and asking them about that, they know, boom, you're a salesperson, you've got this product, but you're proud of it and you're easy enough, you're confident enough to send them that message. Now that's a very quick one, and I think it's a very, straight to the point, but it's about being direct. So I think that's quite ironic, but it works in a good way. Be sincere. Because sincerity is integrity. That's the truth. Saying what you mean and meaning what you say. Not telling the person, oh yeah, send them a certain message. It goes back to the whole double binding message. You're telling them something, you're telling them a certain message, but communicating a different one. I believe this can really help you out with your product. You really need to get this into a part of your life. But being sincere, asking them the questions really helps. And saying, well, how do you think this could really help you? Genuinely. Meaning it, not just saying the words like, oh, how do you think this product can help you get to where you need to be? They're like, what? You're not interested at all in what I've got to say. But by slowing down and asking them genuinely, even if it's an objection, because objections are the best thing about a sales process. They're basically objections, people saying, I haven't got the time, not interested, I can't afford it. We could go on. I'm sure you've had a lot of these in yourself. I'm just not ready for it right now. I need to speak to the missus or the husband. You've had all these objections, but they're basically signals that are telling you what the person needs. If they're not interested, you haven't sold enough about the products and what they need. You haven't built a big enough relationship with the person. Asked the right questions and figured out how to get the product over to them. So, oh, I haven't got the money that right now. Ask them a reflective question. You haven't got the money right now? And that could lead to so much. Instead of taking it as a criticism, as something like a negative thing, it's such a positive thing, because it could lead to a different avenue. You know, I haven't got the time to do it right now. You haven't got the time to do it right now. Well, actually, no, I'm in a rush. I've got a doctor's appointment that I have to go to. I've been late twice. I really do need to nip off. And I say, oh, I understand that. So you need to nip off because you got your doctor's appointment. But if you're interested in the product, I can, move into your further your sales program. It's not that they're not interested, but they genuinely might not have time. But sincerity is important, and that comes back to the listening in the first point as well, and listening what they're saying, and communicating your message on all levels that you want to help them. And that should be any part of a sales process. It's wanting to help the prospect to get to a different place. Any product or service that you have needs to be something that you believe in, because that message needs to be resonated to the person you're speaking to. Being friendly. The law of attraction states that you attract what you are. What you put out is what you get back. You can say it different ways, karma. But if you go around and be overly salesy and, not very good at, getting the questions asked and just generally a bit of a douche, people will probably react to you in that similar way and not give you good results. Because you might be too pushy. Once you push something, it'll go further away. So they'll be repelled. If you want to be friendly, if you want to have a lot of friends, the law states you got to be friendly to people. You can't be annoying and expect to get a lot of friends. If you want to be loved, be loving to people. It's like sitting in front of a fire, sitting in front of a bunch of logs and asking them for fire. If you want the fire, you've got to give it some fire to start off with to get it going. If you want a person to be interested in you, you have to be interesting. If you want a person to really think that you care about them, you've got to care about them. Genuinely all the way through. Because you got to imagine when you're talking to somebody, imagine the stick person as being them. The conscious and subconscious. The subconscious attracts to feeling. And once you get a feeling deep inside of you that this is a good thing or a bad thing, you accept it so much easier. But be friendly to people, because in a sales process you need to be friendly, and they'll react friendly to you as well. They won't be hostile, they won't be negative, they'll listen to what you've got to say and respond in kind. And even if they don't want it, they could probably get a good referral because you've built a relationship with somebody. And it might not, a lot of the time, no means no right now. It's not no forever. I'm sure plenty of you had an experience with that. I've had experience with, network marketers in the past where I've said no. And then eventually I've decided that once they've hit me on a certain level, I've said yes. And I've listened to what they've got to say a lot more. If they've given up at the first no, they wouldn't have had the business. They wouldn't have been having the product. Now be a good finder. I don't mean that to be misconstrued. You've got to be a person that's positive. You've got to be a person to find the good in everything. Now I know in the world there's a lot of bad stuff as well, but when you're in a sales process or relating to people and building effective communication, you've got to figure out what's good in everything. Because it's a law of the universe, the law of polarity. There can't be an up if there's not a down. There can't be a left if there isn't a right. There can't be a back if there's not a front. And you've got to use your perspective to understand that. I could show you the cover of a book that I'm reading right now and say to you there's no words on this page, on the front of this book. And you'd say, yes, there is, because there's words on the page that you're seeing. But I'm seeing the back of the book, and the back of the book's blank. So to me, the front of the book is the back, and there's no words on that, and I'm right. So you've got to be your perspective on things. It's always got to be positive. There's good in everything. If there's bad in something, there's got to be good in it as well. When you're positive and you're looking for the good in everything, you're an attractive person to be around because you're a positive person that's interesting. And people like to be around people that have good, because a lot of people in the world are negative. They're always thinking about what's wrong with something, what's bad about something. But when you start looking for the good, you find a lot more good. It's a law of attraction, like we spoke about earlier on. If you look for successes, you find them a lot more. At the end of the day, if you figure out and you write down something I really advise to a lot of you, write down what has been successful about your day. It might have been very simple things like, well, I woke up on time, maybe a little bit early. I spent 10 minutes reading or however long. I had a little bit of meditation. I wrote in my journal. I spoke to some really good people and gave a good sales presentation to a lot of people. Whether they bought it or not, it was good. I went to the gym. I should be proud of myself. You start looking for these successes. And once you start finding them, you start looking even further for them. And then you start expecting to have them. And that expectations leads you to a lot more. See how these all tie into one? They're creating just a mesh of success. And any one of these can really project your sales to the next level, but combining them, it'll move you through the ranks to being a top performer. So find the good in everything, and once you find the good, you'll see it. You'll allow other people to see the good in a lot of things as well. Being a positive person, people will resonate with you. If you network with people on the internet, on Facebook or LinkedIn, if you're always positive, with your messages are always looking for the best in things, people will see it, and they might not be ready for months, but they'll know that your message is good. And they'll understand that you're a good finder, and they'll speak to you, because if they're feeling particularly bad and they need some help, they'll come to you, because you're always looking on the bright side. So that's the 10th and final point. Now this is from The Top Performer, which I listened to, as I said. I'll post a little link here as well, just for more info for The Top Performer. Now it's a program that John has developed. It's an audio program. It is, like I said, it's a personal development program, but with specific tips. Now this is literally from the 3rd disc, from the last 2 parts of the disc, and to me this is so chock full of information, and it's like a quarter of one of the discs, and you get 6 discs in this program. Now I feel that when I'm talking to people and building communication and relationships with people, that sometimes I can forget a lot of these things. I can forget a lot of the stuff that I've learned, but through the repetition, like I say, with a conscious mind, through repetition of these ideas, you get into your subconscious and you start becoming a person that you need to be. We work a lot on sales, specifically on sales. We go through the objection handling. For a full disc is literally dedicated to all the objections, every single type of objection that you get. For example, I haven't got enough time, and as well as like specific ones, the categories objections, and what you need to say in specific ways, and we even give you language patterns to use specifically in this, just to physically help your sales. They'll literally change your sales by copying almost what they're saying, and it's just an easy way. Even if you aren't interested in the personal development side of it, the sales techniques in here are fantastic. How to get a mastermind program is part of what Bob Proctor goes into. Bob Proctor speaks a lot on this program. Probably about 45 to 50% of it is Bob Proctor talking with John Canary. We go into the mindset, how to develop yourself so you wake up every day ready, hunting for it. And even with this, once you purchase the Top Performer program, the audio program, you'll get 6 weeks of coaching from one of the coaches, just to go through a personal development, personal achievement plan, figure out where you are, where you want to be in 100 days, and for the next 5 weeks help you along that path, whatever you feel like you need, what you're lacking, to give you that accountability. The language patterns, we spoke earlier briefly about, auditory, feeling, and visual people. but goes into so much more detail of how to connect with people, even just what to say to get your message across to people. Now this has opened my eyes, and it helped me to figure out what I was just saying was wrong by the way I was saying it, or how I was feeling inside. Resonated so much deeper to the people I was speaking to. And it's something it's very comprehensive, it's quite a lot of information as well for what it is. It's 6 discs. It's probably a couple of hours in length. And I just listen to, one part of the disc in the morning, and then if I'm focused on a sale at the minute, I listen to that. It goes into a lot of telephone, how to literally speak on a telephone, how to prepare yourself. And it's really taken me to the next level in just giving value to people. So if you do feel like you need some, you could really get some value from a program that's consistent, from a person that's been one of the top salesperson in the world, who's built businesses and worked with some of the top businesses, you will get a lot of value from it. But I'll be doing another webinar in a week or so, going into a little bit more detail of the Top Performer program and how we can really get some better results. But until then, I really hope you've got some value from this. I'd love to hear some feedback from it. Some things you feel like maybe you want to work on for the next webinar. Some things that really resonate with you on a deeper level. Maybe a message that you might want to hear. Maybe just if you want to talk about objection handling. If you want to talk about anything specific, let me know what you want to hear on the webinars. Or even if you want to talk and get on a phone call and chat. I do personal coaching as well. So if you feel like you might need a coach to get you to the next level, to give you some accountability, because that's what really helped for me, having somebody there who I told somebody that I wanted to do something, and he's going to call me at the end of the week and talk about how I've been through it, if I haven't done it, what held me back, and how I can move forward in the future. That's really given me and moved me to the next level. Just that accountability, and that's a big part of being a coach. And that's what we'll go through. If you're part of the 6-week program, we'll actually come together and bring a lot of people in the same call who are resonating on the same sort of frequency, who want to improve the sales, help the businesses. We'll share resources and get you to the next level. So I posted a link on your chat box there, so click it, and John actually speaks about the program as well on that link, about what it entails and who he is as well. So you'll get to see John and what I work with. Who I work with, sorry. I'll check out the website as well. There's some blogs I've been posting. I've posted about 5 to 10 blogs over the last couple of months. And I'll just try and give you some resources to help you in whatever area. But until then, I've had a fantastic time. I hope you've all got some good value. I'd love to hear any feedback that you guys might have had. And yeah, until then, I'll see you all at the next webinar. Thanks very much, guys. I appreciate your time.